Alright, welcome to math class, or at least computer science version of math class. Today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at how to perform mathematical operations in our Java programs. So programs that you create in Java are commonly created to solve some sort of a mathematical problem. The first thing we can look at is how to do common operations using Java. And we know the common operations of addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. There's one additional one that we use called modulus. Let's take a look first at division using a / symbol in Java. When you do division in Java, if you use integer values for your division, you will always result in an integer answer. It will essentially just ignore whatever comes after the decimal place, so always rounding down. If you want to result in the actual exact answer, you need to make sure you're using decimal numbers in your question. So you'd have to write 12.0 divided by 5.0, and you'll end up with the decimal answer. When you do multiplication in Java, you must use the asterisk symbol for multiplication. And finally, we have the modulus, which uses a % sign. The way modulus works is it sort of divides the two values and takes the remainder as its answer. So in this example, 12 divided by 5 would give you 10 with a remainder of 2. So 12 modulus 5 is equal to 2. These operations all follow normal BEDMAS rules, and modulus falls in between the multiplication and addition sections of BEDMAS. So what I'm going to get you to do is pause the video at this point and try and work through these 7 problems and get an answer. And then when you've finished, continue on to see what your answers are and if you got it correct. So here are the answers. So again, you can notice in this first example that 5.0 divided by 2 will give you a decimal answer of 2.5. When you add 4 to that, you'll get 6.5. Okay, you can work your way through the other ones. If you have any questions on these, write them down, and I'll take them up with you in class tomorrow. So if we want to work with equations in Java, you need to know that whenever you do a calculation, you do it on the right-hand side of the equal sign. And the result of that operation is going to be stored in a variable that's found on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So for example, if I have a variable called age, and it's equal to 25 plus 1, well, that's 26, so age now equals 26. If I continue on and say that age is going to equal to age plus 1, well, we saw from the line above that age was 26, so 26 plus 1 is 27. Age will now equal 27. If you want to increase or decrease the value of a variable, you can use a shortcut command, plus plus, plus equals, minus minus, or minus equals, and I'll show you how those work. So if you did a number or a variable plus plus, it's the same thing as saying that variable is equal to that variable plus 1. Same thing with minus minus, is sort of saying it's equal to itself minus 1. If you do a variable plus equals a number, it's the same as saying that variable is equal to what it was plus 3 more, and same thing with minus equals. Now you notice here that you can put the plus plus and the minus minus either before or after the variable name. The position of that plus plus and minus minus determines whether the value is going to be increased or decreased before it is used. So in this case, I'm going to use the x value for whatever I'm doing, then I'm going to add 1 to it. In this case, I'm going to add 1 to the variable, then use the x value. I'll show you what I mean by this. Again, if you follow through this code and try and print out what you think the values are going to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little table here. One showing me what the value of x is, and one showing me what my output is. So in this case, x started out as 1. So if I go and print x plus plus, it means I'm going to print the value of x, which is 1. Then I'm going to add 1 to it, so x is now equal to 2. My next line says, well, print x. So x is 2, so I'm going to print a 2. After that, I'm just going to say to add 1 to x and then print it. So adding 1 to x gives me a 3, and then I print it, giving me a 3. Print x again, so this would be a 3, and this would be a 3 because I haven't changed it. X plus equals 5, so here I'm going to say, well, I want to print x equals x plus 5. So 3 plus 5 is going to give me 8, and then I'm going to print it. So again, if I print it again, it will still be an 8. If I'm now going to print x minus minus, I'm going to print x, then minus from it. So I'm going to print x. X is an 8, and I'm going to minus from it, giving me a 7. So x is now 7, and I print it, so I'm printing a 7. Notice how these don't line up exactly. They're changing what my output is dependent upon when I did my operation. Similarly here, I'll do a minus minus x, so I'm going to subtract from x first, and then print it. And again, I'll print it again here. Here we're going to say x times equals 2. So x is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. And then I'm going to print it. And then last time printing it here. Common and simple math equations can be calculated automatically by using a collection of commands or methods that come with Java. So there are many different operations like calculating an exponent, calculating a sine, a cosine, rounding, square roots. All those kinds of things have methods that exist to allow us to do this easily. These methods are stored in the math class. So in order to be able to use them at the top of your program, you need to import it. So here we can go. We can say math.abs gives me the absolute value of whatever variable I provide in the argument. We've got square root, getting the square root. Math.max will tell me which the largest number of the two variables are that I provide in the arguments. Similarly with the min, it'll give me the minimum value. And power will give me the x to the power of y. If I want to round, to convert a decimal number into an integer value, I can either get the lowest, or always rounding down, I can always round up, or I can round using proper rounding rules, where if it's a 5 or more it rounds up, 4 or less it rounds down. If you want to round a number to a specific number of decimal places, you can do this by creating a variable to represent the number of decimal places you want to round to. So for example, if I want to round to 0.1, that would be the same thing as saying 1 decimal place. 0.01 would be 2 decimal places. And then I use the math.round method. It looks something like this. So I create a variable called place, which is equal to 0.1. I want to round something. I want to round this number here to 1 decimal place. I divide it by place and then multiply it by place, and this will then round this value. So if I divide it, it essentially shifts it over. So it's 51.251. Then it rounds this to 51. And then multiplies it by 0.1, so it's going to shift it back over, and I end up with just 5.1. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to generate a random number, and this is very useful for creating randomness in your programs. Right? If the same thing is going to happen all the time, your programs are going to eventually get very boring. But by allowing to have randomness in, by generating a random number, we can do a lot of more interesting things. So a random number that's generated here is going to be between the values 0 and 0.99999. If you want to make a different range than that, you need to do some calculations. So I'll show you an example. If I want to create a number between 1 and 100, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a random number between 0 and 0.999. I'm going to multiply it by 100 and add 1, and then get the integer value of that. Okay. Another example, between 6 and 13, math.random, I'm going to multiply by 8, add 6, get the integer value. Why? Well, think of it this way. 0.999. If that's the maximum number I could possibly get, I can multiply that by 8. So 0.999 times 8 is going to give me 7.99999 as the highest I can possibly go. If I add 6 to that, that's going to give me the highest value of 13.999. If I get an integer value, ignores the decimal, my maximum would be 13. Similarly, if I'm looking at the lowest possible random number, it'd be a 0. 0 times 8 would be 0. 0 plus 6 is 6, which is my lowest value here. That's it. Again, hopefully if you have any questions, write them down and we'll take them up in class tomorrow.